We are going to be checking out the Neewer F700 7-inch on-camera monitor. This is an ultra bright 7-inch monitor that costs under $300, but it still is jam-packed with a bunch of professional features that you'd get from a more expensive monitor. And in my 3 weeks of using this monitor, I was really impressed with it, so let's go over what you get with it. In the box, of course, you're gonna find the monitor itself, but you do get a ton of extra accessories that help you use it immediately, such as the camera monitor, a bunch of different HDMI cables that go from full size to micro HDMI, and the set I got came with 2 NP-F batteries. And what makes these special is that they are actually rechargeable via USB-C, which is so much better than using those old and slow NP-F chargers. So what makes this monitor so special? Let's start with its brightness. This is a 2000 nit monitor, which means you can use this actually in full power outside and still see the screen. Most monitors out there are barely 1000, maybe 1500 nits, and so this one at 2000 really is astonishing. I've been able to use this pretty comfortably outdoors, although I do wish it had a sun hood because that would help reduce some of the glare and make it that much better. I also really appreciate the different ways you can power this monitor. Of course, right now you can see I'm using the NP-F batteries that are provided with it, and you have 2 slots here. So if one gets low, you can actually remove that one and then switch it out with a fresh one without actually powering off the monitor. And then on the side here, you do have a DC in barrel port for 12 volts. And then on the bottom, you actually can charge this with a USB-C cable. And I tried it with my V-mount battery and it seems to work perfectly fine. Which brings me to its size and usability. I actually really like 7-inch monitors. I know some people prefer smaller monitors, but it really just depends on your needs. But with a 7-inch monitor, you can clearly see your frame. You're not gonna mess up your composition at all. And if anything's poking out at the edges, you'll see it. There's been so many times when I've been shooting and I use the small LCD screen on the back here, and you'd think you framed the shot properly, only to come back to the office and see there are things in the shot that are framed incorrectly. That's not gonna happen on a 7-inch monitor. And this thing is very high resolution as well. And I also really appreciate how responsive it is. It is touchscreen, but you also have buttons along the top that you can assign functions to. So here I have like false color that you can choose on and off. You have peaking, and then you also have the third one set to turning on and off the audio meters, which show up on the left-hand side here. But you can just touch the screen to operate it. So I can slide up and down to change the brightness. And then if I go on the other side, up and down actually changes the volume because there is a headphone jack here that you can connect your headphones for monitoring. And with that, let's hop into some of the features you're gonna get with this monitor. Let's start by actually reducing the brightness once again by touching the screen on the left-hand side and sliding down. And to open up the menu, just double tap the screen anywhere. And your menu will show up on the left-hand side here. And so first we have our exposure assist tools. So here we can turn on false color, and it comes with 2 flavors, Spectrum and Ari, depending on which one you prefer. Next we have Zebra, which we can assign to any individual IRE value from 0 all the way to 100. My only qualm with this feature is that this sort of shows the limit of what your IRE value is. And so if you have it here, let's say at 60%, it's showing you everything that's at 60 and above. And so it's more of like showing you the upper limit. And so if you have it here like at 0 or at 1, for example, or 3, you'll see the zebras are all over the screen because everything's at or above 3 IRE. And so just keep that in mind when using this feature. Next, we have histogram. And what I really like about some of these features is that you can change the position of where these show. So here's brightness. You can put in the bottom left corner, the left-hand corner, some of the middle positions. You cannot put anything in the direct center, and the sides here. And so that's a really cool feature. You can also have RGB on as well. I'm more of a brightness person, and I like it usually on the left-hand side, but we'll close it for now. Next, we have waveform. And here you have a ton of different options. You have your Y, which is like your brightness values, the YUV, and your RGB. And just so you can see it a little better here, there it is on the left-hand side. And finally, you have your vector scope, which is that little circular graph that shows you where your skin tone line is and where all the colors in your scene lie. And then you can actually enable all of the waveforms to show up at once. And if you do this, you'll see you have all the information when it comes to your exposure. And then on the top right-hand side, you have your actual monitor. And I actually kind of like this feature because this is a 7-inch monitor. The cropping that you get in the corner here is still a very large screen. In fact, it's still much larger than your LCD screen, but you're able to monitor all these different exposure values, which is also really cool. But if you don't like that, of course, you can just disable it. And the last item here on exposure assist is enabling HDR, which I will not do. Next, we have our focus and composition. And so we can see here, we can change the color of the screen to be a single color. I like sometimes setting it to black and white so you can really just focus on the contrast of the scene. But this can be helpful depending on your shooting scenario. Next, we have focus peaking. So this will just show you where your focus is. You can set it to different colors, red, green, blue, or white. I like red usually, and then the strength of it. So how much of it is actually gonna show in focus when you have focus peaking enabled. We'll close that for now. We can add a center mark, which I really like. Just hit open, and then you can change the color here from red, green, blue, white, and black. Personally, I'll find white for any sort of composition to be really easy. Next, we have a safe area. This is really for anyone who's gonna do like broadcasting or something where you want to show areas of the screen that are safe to put graphics and stuff. And so this can be useful. You can change the color once again, and you have different preset values, which I don't use these, so I'm not sure how useful 80, 85, 90, 93, and 95 are, but they are there if that is something you need. Next, we have our aspect ratio markers. And this one's really cool because you have 4:3, 16:10, of course your 16:9, and you have some of the wider screen options if you plan to crop in post to get more of that widescreen look. And you can change the transparency level. So here you can still see the rest of the frame. You can just add it so that it's just a border. Then you can actually have it so that it actually really hides what's not in frame. And so you can really just focus on what is in that border. So we'll close that for now. Next, we have grid lines, which I've had enabled this whole time. I personally like 3x3s, but of course you can do even 2x2s, 4x4s, 5x5s, 6x6, and 7x7s, and so on. And finally, here in focus and composition, we have our audio meters. And so you can actually monitor audio here. It'll show your left channels on top and your bottom channels on the right. My only qualm with this is that you cannot move the audio meter, and so it's going to always be on the bottom left corner. That's not a huge issue, but it is something that I wish I could customize like some of the other monitoring features. Now we have the LUT configuration page. And this just allows you to use either the LUTs they have internally, which comes preset. So you have C-Log 1, D-Log, Panasonic log, Red log, and all the S-Logs for Sony. So, you can play with those. I don't really like using presets just because they don't always work as intended. And so you can actually upload your own LUTs. And so they'll show up here in user LUTs, but to do so you need to use an SD card that goes into SD port on the bottom here. Now we can move on to display settings. And here we have more aspect ratios. This one just basically changes the aspect ratio of the signal going to the monitor. And so this isn't cropping it or anything, it's just actually changing it. I don't find this super useful, and leaving it at auto works, especially because sometimes I will shoot in DCI if I'm on my Canon shooting RAW. But otherwise, this feature isn't really for me. Next, we have display flip. So you can flip this horizontally, or you can split this vertically. And this is mainly used if you're gonna be setting this up on a vertical mount, or maybe it's just set upside down on some sort of rig, but that's just an option there for you. Next, we have zoom, and this just allows you to zoom in on the image 1 time or 3 times. This can be useful for setting critical focus. Next, you can enable pixel to pixel, which I believe is supposed to make the image a little more sharp and accurate to the resolution that you're shooting on. I'm not entirely sure. I've never really used this feature, so I usually leave it at close and the image still looks great. Next, we have scan mode. and you have overscan or standard. And I've noticed that when you overscan, it seems to slightly crop in, and so I just leave it on standard for the most part. Next, you can freeze the frame. If you do that, it just locks on to whatever frame you have it on currently. And so once you unlock it, you'll unfreeze this frame. But there's no way to actually save these freeze frames. They're just there just in case you wanna, for whatever reason, lock an image. Next, we have battery and fan information. You can actually enable to show the battery information. It usually pops in the right-hand corner, but I think because I'm not really using this intensely, it's not showing, but that's where it would normally show up. And then you have control over the fan. You can have it on low, medium, high, or of course auto, or even turn it off altogether. I trust the system, and so far auto's been good. I haven't really heard it be too loud, although granted it is winter where I am right now. And finally, we have anamorphic controls. So we can actually de-squeeze our image on the monitor directly. You have 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, 1.79, 2 times and 2 times magnified. And so this is great for anyone who uses anamorphic lenses. This fact that this monitor has this feature really is mind-blowing, especially at this price point. And then finally, you have the system configuration. You can change your language. You can show how long the screen is on before it goes to sleep. This is only really gonna happen when you don't have a signal like the HDMI here. You can start to adjust the image quality like brightness, sharpness, contrast, and saturation. I do recommend customizing this to your liking. Same with color temperature. I've personally noticed it looks best at 6500K, but if for whatever reason the color is off compared to your LCD screen or your monitor on your computer, you can adjust the colors here, and that'll be easier to accurately judge colors on this monitor. You can now control backlight in this menu as well. I turn auto off because I do not want the brightness adjusting randomly. And then you can use this slider to adjust the brightness. However, I really just like using my finger on the touchscreen here, going up and down. That seems to work really well and is really responsive. Next, you have controls over the sound here. You can mute it or leave it on, and you can change the volume of your headphones that you have plugged in. And then down here, you have your hotkeys. So you can assign different functions to different hotkeys here. So the F1 I've set to false color, F2 I set to peaking, and F3 I set to audio. Unfortunately, you don't have all the features here that you can hotkey, which is a shame, but it does have most of them, and it hasn't really been an issue for me yet. The main one I wish it had was LUT turning on and off. And then finally, you can update the firmware using this menu and the SD card. And then status just shows you what your settings are at currently in terms of the resolution and other information like that. So if you're looking for a budget monitor that is large, ultra bright, and is packed with features, the Neewer F700 is a great option. If you want to pick one of these up for yourself, there will be an affiliate link in the description box and pinned comment down below. And this is an easy way to support the channel at no extra cost to you. But what do you think of the Neewer F700 7-inch on-camera monitor? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. I appreciate every single one of you who do, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.